I had lived a life up to that point, locked inside a bind of a prison of my own making with inside a mind that was gripped in the throes of mental health. By the time I went to see my GP on the 26th of September 2012, that had descended into full-blown alcoholism, to the degree that, at that point, at 9:30 in the morning, I was already halfway down the second bottle of wine for the day. I was drinking 5 per day, every day. In actual fact, I wasn't sober, period, for about 3 years. My GP took one look at me, picked the telephone up, and I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm phoning for an ambulance." And like an idiot, I went, "Who for?" Still in denial. Me, her in the room. Long story short, I spent 6 weeks in hospital, end-stage liver failure, kidney failure, you name it, it had failed, it was gone. And I subsequently found out that had I not gone to my GP that day, and I very nearly didn't, 24 hours later I would have been dead. Wow. I came that close. Such was the power of the addiction, for sure, by the end, but such was the power of the story I told myself. The story we tell ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, gets us into massive trouble if we're not self-aware. So the key attribute for me in becoming more successful was certainly to become self-aware. Aware of the conversations I was having with myself daily. I can't do this, I can't do that. Or alternately, I can do this anytime I like. Stop drinking, for instance, I just don't want to. Twist fits my story, therefore I don't have to make any changes because I've just given myself the permission to stay within my carefully crafted facade of a comfort zone. As bad as it was, just in case I stuck my head over the parapet, I'd get it shot off. What could be worse? What could be worse than where I already was, and yet I was too scared to move forward? Such was the power of the story that I told myself. Long story short, I came home, I spent 6 weeks in hospital, and I actually spent about 12 months just being. Just being. I did nothing but read, I didn't drink, I've lost count now, but somewhere in the region of 2,150 days stone cold sober, and there are now 2 4 o'clocks in every day instead of 1. I live a fearless life. Does that mean I'm not scared of anything? No. It just means that I put different labels on it these days. I threw myself out of an aeroplane last year. Well, I'll rephrase that. I was with somebody. He had the parachute. I had absolutely no control, but I chose to accept that if the worst came to the worst and the parachute didn't open, my family would be very well provided by the insurance cover I take now, and I would have had a hell of a ride on the way down. However, I still didn't relish hitting the ground at 150 miles an hour plus, if not more, and going splat. But you know what? When I sat on the edge of that aeroplane that morning, I looked down, and the only thing that I was scared of was the fact that I looked down and realised I'd forgotten to change my shoes. I had a very expensive pair of shoes on, and I forgot to swap them for my trainers. Seriously. And I thought, oh no, here we go, I'm going to be driving home barefoot. But really, if that was all I had to worry about, I really didn't have anything to worry about at all. And you know what? Halfway down that jump, we free fell for 6,000 feet at 120 miles per second. Wow. There's a photograph of me somewhere doing that. I'm not smiling, that's of course. But I realised halfway down that I'd never been afraid of heights. I'd been afraid of hitting the ground and going splat. I put a different label on all my fears. Fear in and of itself cripples us. It robs us not only of our todays, but it steals our tomorrows. These days, Simon Cowell and the X Factor, you can forget that, bless him. I mean, even now, as a fearless person, there's no way on God's green earth I'm doing that. However, I could if I wanted to. I just don't want to. There's a difference between wanting to and not being able, and being able to and not wanting to. The way that I work today is I lead people to understand that, number one, fear is an illusion. It's actually a physiological reaction to the interpretation that our mind puts on the emotions that we have. Fear and excitement, the exact same physiological reaction. I have a friend that spends inordinate amounts of money to go to Disneyland every year. queue for hours on end to throw himself down roller coasters. I can't think of anything worse. Seriously, I would much rather be lying on a beach on a starlit, moon-filled sky with a bonfire burning and just watching the waves crash. That's my idea of heaven and perfection. Theme parks are his. Perfection, like fear, is an ideal. It doesn't exist. Zero-size models and airbrushing create the illusion that we're all deemed to be perfect. Doesn't exist. The only things that exist are those that we create within our mind. I found that out maybe 18 months after I nearly killed myself because the story I told myself got me into trouble. These days, even I don't believe what I'm saying, let alone anybody else. However, what I do know for fact is that unlike Simon Cowell and his X Factor, when the fear factor kicks in, we go nowhere, we do nothing, and if we do it with self-limiting negative beliefs and thought patterns. And the power that they have over the mindset that we think is ours has total control. My signature in England is called "The Sky's Not the Limit, We Are," because I very, very, very firmly believe that these days. The only limits that any of us have, ladies and gents, are those that we place on ourselves. So these days, rather than running away and hiding behind a bottle or 5, I quite enjoyed most of it, to be fair. The last 3 years are a bit of a blur, and clearly I defined the opposite, the invitation to die. But when I was told that I was dying, Oprah Winfrey would have called that a light bulb moment. Fair point. I had November the 5th, July the 4th, and New Year's Eve firework displays going off in my brain all at the same time, and I was crying. My husband, who's here today, was crying. Our then 18-year-old daughter walked into the room. She'd seen me cry many times before, but never her father. And she said, "What? What just happened?" She knew I was dying. I was never a secret drinker. I used to say things like, "Yeah, of course I've got a drink problem. I have 2 hands, 1 mouth." The story I was telling myself, I was excusing myself. I was out there. If I'm saying it, you can't. When she came in and she was told her mother was dying, she looked at me, she held my gaze for a split second. And in that gaze, I saw hatred, and fear, and anger, but most of all, love. In the eyes of an 18-year-old girl who'd just been told that her mother was dying. And in that second, I found my why. My should, I should stop drinking, had long ago become a must. We all have them, don't we? I must stop smoking, stop drinking, lose weight. The must often is enough to change our habits and our thought patterns. But when we have a why that is bigger than anything that you will ever need to polarize your thought to such levels that you do something about it, you rarely look back. There have been many a time when I've walked into a bar in England after having a row with a husband, or my why now, my daughter, who is now 25 nearly, the why for my sobriety, bizarrely, is often nearly the cause for it not being anymore, because we're human, we're not perfect. And I have often walked into a bar and gone, "Give me a minute," like a really bad actress from an even worse soap opera, looking as though I'm being really dramatic, and all I'm doing is giving myself time to auto-correct, even now nearly 6 years on, auto-correct the story that I'm telling myself, because I know without a shadow of a doubt that if I take that first drink, would I ever stop? I like to think that I wouldn't ever have the opportunity to find out, but I know I'm not perfect and I never second guess. So instead of being locked inside a fear factor in a prison within my own mind these days, I now say yes to opportunity. Opportunity is around us and surrounds us every day in every way. And like at the top was saying, the mere acceptance of the fact that we are here and we can live, and I firmly believe you can choose to live. I certainly chose to live, but there was a point when that was beyond my control. I'm glad to say that I'm now classed as medically cooperative by my medics. On the day I was admitted to hospital, I was 6.5 stone heavier than I am now. I have no idea what that equates to in pounds because maths is not my subject. But I was like 2-3 times me.
Wow.
I was on 17 prescriptions a day, totaling 44 different pills and potions, and I subsequently found out that 4 of them were toxic when they were prescribed together. There's no blame attached to that. I did this all on my own. Had I not done what I did, I wouldn't have been taking the medication that my medics deemed necessary, and bizarrely they have contributed to my decline. However, I'm pretty sure the 5 bottles of wine a day did more. Don't ever underestimate the power of your mind, ladies and gents. We're in charge of it, it's not in charge of us. We can, all of us, do, be, say, become absolutely anything, and it all begins and ends here. Everything begins and ends inside us, and everything is at our fingertips when we choose to embrace opportunity. Acceptance for me of my limitations was key in becoming successful. Am I rich? No. Do more people know me now than they did 6 years ago? Yes. Will I be the richest or the poorest man, woman in the cemetery? It won't matter, because I'm going out the same way as I came in, except with a few more wrinkles, naked and penniless. Bottom line is, it doesn't matter what we have in this world. For me, the legacy that I wish to leave behind for my family, for anybody that hears my words, is for you to understand this. We get what we settle for, ladies and gents. We don't have to settle for what we get, and we do have the power to take a chance to choose to change absolutely any time we like. If you're waiting for the right time to effect change in your lives, it's now. Right now. Thank you very much.
Do we have other speaker of the session also?
No.
So thank you.